The huge meeting room buzzed with noise as Jake Morrison walked to his seat. The room was made of crystal and held representatives from 47 different alien species. Each species was more advanced than humans. Humans had only joined this galactic council 3 years ago, and most aliens still thought humans were a joke. "Look at the hairless monkeys," laughed Ambassador Zexthai from the Valoran Empire. He had 4 arms and waved them around as he spoke. "They think they can help us with defense. What can a species that just learned to travel faster than light possibly do for us?" Jake kept his face calm as laughter filled the room. Next to him sat General Lisa Hayes looking at her tablet. The other humans at the table were Dr. Kevin Blake, Admiral Susan Carter, and Commander Paul Jenkins. None of them showed any reaction to the mockery. The Galactic Defense Committee had called this emergency meeting because of scary reports. An unknown enemy was moving through the outer space territories. 3 advanced alien civilizations had already gone silent. Their colonies had simply disappeared without any warning signals. "The Cathari Dominion will give 50 war fleets," announced their representative. It was a tall insect-like creature whose wings had built-in energy shields that sparkled. "The Zephyrian Federation promises 30 planet destroyer ships and our best battle stations," added another delegate. This earned approving sounds from around the room. When it was time for the human section to speak, Jake stood up slowly. "The Terran Alliance offers our complete military help." The room exploded with laughter. Even the usually serious Andromedans made amused clicking sounds. "Humans have no real military power," stated the Council's military advisor. He brought up holographic displays that showed information about human forces. 47 colony worlds, 12 space stations, and a fleet of about 200 ships. Basic weapons that shoot metal bullets, simple energy shields, and crude faster-than-light engines. General Hayes leaned toward Jake and whispered something in his ear. He nodded and spoke to the room again. "We understand your worries about our limited visible abilities. However, we ask permission to work with existing defense forces when the hostile enemy arrives." "Permission granted," laughed the council chairman. He was a massive creature with tentacles whose species had ruled space for thousands of years. "Though we recommend you move your people from your colonies immediately. This enemy has destroyed civilizations with technology hundreds of years beyond yours." The meeting ended and delegates started leaving. They were still chuckling about human boldness. None of them noticed the small smile on Jake Morrison's face. As the aliens filed out of the crystal chamber, their conversations were full of amusement. The Cathari ambassador clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. "Did you hear that? The humans want to coordinate with our forces. It would be like asking children to help adults fight a war." The Valoran delegate shook all 4 of his heads. "I almost feel sorry for them. They have no idea what they are about to face. This enemy force has destroyed the Crimson Coalition, the Stellar Republic, and the Advanced Hegemony. Each of those civilizations could have conquered human space in a matter of days." Ambassador Zexthai's scales changed color to show his amusement. "Perhaps we should set aside a few ships to evacuate human refugees when their colonies fall. It would be the charitable thing to do." Meanwhile, the human delegation remained seated as the chamber emptied. They did not speak until the last alien had left and the security systems confirmed they were alone. "Well, that went exactly as expected," General Hayes said quietly. Admiral Carter looked at her own tablet, checking encrypted messages. "Earth Command confirms all assets are in position. The fleet is ready." Dr. Blake adjusted his glasses and reviewed scientific data. "The enemy signatures match our predictions. Whatever is coming has technology that makes current galactic forces look primitive." Commander Jenkins studied tactical displays. "The alien fleets will engage first. Based on our analysis, they will last approximately 6 hours before complete defeat." Jake Morrison nodded slowly. 6 hours should be enough time for final preparations. Are all our people in position?" "Affirmative," replied Admiral Carter. "Every human ship is exactly where it needs to be. Every station has reported ready status. The stealth assets are deployed and waiting." "What about the special projects?" asked Jake. Dr. Blake smiled for the first time that day. "Project Shadowfall is operational. Project Thunderbolt is standing by. Project Nightmare is fully charged and ready for deployment." General Hayes looked around the empty chamber. "You know, in a way I feel bad for them. They have no idea what is about to happen." "They made their choice," Jake replied firmly. "For 3 years they have treated us like children. They have laughed at our technology and dismissed our warnings. We offered to share intelligence about the coming threat 8 months ago. They refused to even look at our data. Admiral Carter stood up and straightened her uniform. The enemy will arrive in 72 hours. Our long-range sensors confirm their approach vector and speed. When they engage the galactic fleets, they will expect to face the same level of resistance they encountered in previous battles. Instead, they will discover what happens when you threaten humanity, added Commander Jenkins grimly. The human delegation gathered their materials and prepared to leave. As they walked toward the exit, Jake paused and looked back at the now empty chamber where 46 alien species had just dismissed human military capability. In 72 hours, every being in this galaxy will understand why Earth's military doctrine has one simple rule, he said quietly. What rule is that? Asked Dr. Blake. Jake Morrison's smile returned, but this time it was not small or hidden. This time it was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would change everything. Never let the enemy know your true strength until the moment you decide to end the war. The human delegation left the crystal chamber. Behind them, automated systems began recording the meeting for historical archives. In 72 hours, these recordings would become the last evidence of the day when humanity was underestimated for the final time. Outside the chamber, alien delegates continued their conversations about the amusing human offer of military assistance. None of them noticed the small devices that human technicians had quietly installed in various locations throughout the station during the meeting. None of them realized that humanity had been listening to every private conversation, recording every tactical plan, and analyzing every piece of military data that the galactic species thought was secure. The countdown to revelation had begun. The enemy fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima defense grid exactly 3 days later. Admiral Susan Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Denver, watching the computer screens with professional interest. The Denver was supposed to be humanity's newest flagship, though none of the aliens knew what that really meant. We have contact with enemy forces, reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Walsh from his station. Holy cow, Admiral, you really need to see this. The main screen changed to show the approaching enemy ships. They were massive vessels, each one easily 10 times larger than the biggest human ship that aliens had ever seen. The hull seemed to eat light itself, creating moving shadows against the stars. How many ships? Carter asked calmly. Conservative estimate, 800 big warships. Probably twice that many smaller support ships. They are heading straight for the Andromedan home system. The Andromedan fleet was already getting ready for battle. 500 of their most advanced warships moved into position, armed with quantum torpedoes and gravity shields. The Valorans had placed 300 ships in supporting formations. 17 other alien species had sent their best military assets to help. Carter opened a secure communication channel to Earth. Control, this is Denver. The party is about to start. Copy that, Denver. Are you in position? Yes, all human assets are positioned according to the plan. Remember, Admiral, we get one chance at this. Make it count. The alien fleets attacked the enemy first. Carter watched through long-range sensors as the battle began. The enemy ships moved with impossible coordination. Their weapons cut through even the most advanced alien shields like they were made of paper. Andromedan dreadnoughts that were previously thought to be invincible exploded in brilliant flashes of light. They are not even slowing down, Walsh said grimly. The entire Valoran battle group just disappeared. Admiral Carter activated the human fleet communication network. All vessels, this is Denver. Continue to stay in position. Do not attack until I give authorization. Across the human fleet, confusion spread through the crews. They watched helplessly as their supposed allies were systematically destroyed. The enemy force had not even taken any damage. On the USS Portland, Captain Nicole Fisher fought to keep order as her crew demanded to know why they were not helping. Orders are orders, she told her bridge crew firmly. We wait. The massacre continued for 6 hours. When it ended, fewer than 50 alien ships were still working, and most of those were badly damaged and drifting in space. The enemy fleet regrouped and began moving toward the inner systems where billions of beings lived on inhabited planets. During those 6 hours, the human crews watched in horror as the galaxy's finest military forces were completely destroyed. The Cathari ships, famous for their advanced armor, were cut apart like toys. The Zephyrian planet crackers, weapons that could destroy worlds, fired their most powerful shots and barely scratched the enemy hulls. My God, whispered Lieutenant Murphy on the Portland. They are heading for the civilian worlds next. We have to do something. Captain Fisher checked her sealed orders one more time. The instructions were clear and had been signed by the highest levels of human command. We maintain position. Trust the plan. On other human ships, similar scenes played out. Crews watched their instruments as refugee ships fled from the outer colonies. Distress signals filled the communication channels. The enemy was not just destroying military targets, they were wiping out entire civilizations. Admiral, Ryan Walsh called out, his voice tight with emotion. We are receiving the transmission. Admiral Carter had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. She felt a calm settle over her that she had not experienced since her days commanding ships in the old Earth fleet exercises. The message came directly from Terra Command, the secret military headquarters that no alien species knew existed. It was transmitted on frequencies that human ships had been monitoring but never using, sent with encryption that would have been impossible to break even for the most advanced galactic civilizations. All units, this is Terra Command. Operation Checkmate is authorized. I repeat, Operation Checkmate is a go. Begin immediate transition to full combat configuration. All stealth assets prepare for revelation. All hidden weapons platforms come online. All deep space installations begin power-up sequences. Carter smiled grimly and opened fleet-wide communications on channels that had been dormant for 3 years. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had been preparing for this moment since humanity first reached the stars. You heard the command, people. Time to show them what humanity really looks like when we stop playing nice. Across the human fleet, something began to happen that no alien species had ever witnessed. Ships that had appeared to be simple exploration vessels and cargo haulers began to change. Captain Fisher felt the Portland shudder as hidden systems came online. Computer, initiate full combat configuration. Warning, full combat configuration will reveal classified military capabilities. This action cannot be undone. Confirm authorization. Authorization confirmed. Captain Nicole Fisher, USS Portland, authorization code Delta 77 Alpha. The transformation began immediately. The Portland's hull started extending as armor plates slid apart to reveal weapon arrays that had been hidden inside what looked like cargo bays. The ship's length doubled, then tripled, as concealed sections emerged from spaces that alien inspectors had been told contained supplies and equipment. Similar changes were happening throughout the human fleet. 200 ships that the galaxy thought were barely armed civilian vessels revealed themselves to be fully armed warships, each one carrying enough firepower to threaten an entire star system. But that was only the beginning. Hidden throughout the Proxima system, behind asteroids and inside the sensor shadows of planets, other ships began to appear. Stealth vessels that had been invisible for years powered down their cloaking devices. Massive carriers that had been disguised as research stations opened their bays and released swarms of fighter craft. Most impressive of all were the dreadnoughts. Ships so large they had been hidden in pocket dimensions began emerging into normal space. These vessels dwarfed even the enemy ships, their hulls bristling with weapons that alien science claimed were impossible. The enemy fleet, which had been advancing confidently toward the inner colonies, suddenly found itself facing not 200 primitive human ships, but over 3,000 vessels of obviously advanced design. Admiral Carter watched as her tactical display updated to show the true scope of human military power. 3 years of careful deception had led to this moment. Open a channel to the enemy fleet, she ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Attention, hostile forces. This is Admiral Susan Carter of the Terran Alliance Defense Force. You have committed acts of war against sovereign species under human protection. You have exactly 60 seconds to surrender, or we will demonstrate why attacking human allies was the worst mistake you have ever made. The response from the enemy fleet came in the form of massive energy beams shooting toward the human ships. These were the same weapons that had destroyed the most advanced alien fleets in the galaxy. Admiral Carter watched the enemy fire with the cold calculation of someone who had been expecting this exact response. All ships, weapons free, she announced calmly. Show them what we learned from 1,000 years of fighting each other. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations to come. The human ships moved with a precision that made the enemy's coordination look clumsy and amateur. They did not charge forward like the alien fleets had done. Instead, they spread out in complex patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully calculated formations. The enemy's first salvo, which should have destroyed dozens of human vessels, struck empty space. The human ships had moved just enough to avoid the weapons while still maintaining their attack positions. Interesting, Admiral Carter said as she watched the tactical display. Their targeting systems are designed to fight enemies who use standard galactic military doctrine. They were not expecting Earth combat techniques. The human counterattack began with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Instead of the simple kinetic projectiles that human ships supposedly carried, beams of pure energy lanced out from the transformed vessels. These were not the plasma cannons or laser arrays that galactic civilizations used. These were something entirely different. Captain Fisher watched from the Portland's bridge as her ship's main guns fired for the first time in combat. The weapon arrays that had been hidden for 3 years unleashed devastating firepower. Where the beams struck enemy ships, the massive hulls simply ceased to exist, leaving perfectly spherical holes that went completely through the vessels. "What kind of weapons are those?" asked Lieutenant Murphy in amazement. "Quantum dissolution cannons," Fisher replied, checking her tactical readouts. "They break down matter at the subatomic level. The enemy ships are not just being destroyed, they are being unmade." Across the human fleet, similar weapons opened fire. Gravity bombs that collapsed space itself created miniature black holes that consumed enemy vessels. Dimensional cutters sliced through hulls by opening rifts in reality. Temporal mines created zones where time moved differently, causing enemy ships to age thousands of years in seconds. The enemy fleet tried to adapt. Their ships began moving in more defensive patterns and increased power to their shields. For a few minutes, it seemed like they might be able to withstand the human assault. Then the real weapons came online. The massive dreadnoughts that had emerged from hidden dimensions began firing their primary armaments. These were not ship-to-ship weapons. They were planet killers that had been redesigned for space combat. Each shot contained enough energy to sterilize a continent. The largest enemy vessel, a command ship that was twice the size of anything the aliens had ever built, took a direct hit from the dreadnought USS Montana. The result was spectacular. The enemy ship did not explode or break apart. Instead, it simply vanished as every atom in its structure was converted to pure energy. "Target eliminated," reported the Montana's weapons officer with professional calm, but the human fleet was just getting started. The carriers had finished deploying their fighter squadrons, and these small craft were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved through space like they were ignoring the laws of physics, changing direction without turning, accelerating without thrust, and passing through solid matter when it suited them. The fighters swarmed the enemy fleet like angry insects. Their weapons were smaller than those on the capital ships, but they were just as deadly. Enemy vessels that had survived the initial bombardment found themselves under attack from hundreds of small craft that could not be targeted by conventional weapons. Commander Jake Peterson led the first fighter squadron. From the carrier USS Lexington, his ship phased through the hull of an enemy destroyer and fired its weapons from inside the vessel. The enemy ship collapsed inward as its internal structure was destroyed from within. "This is almost too easy," he reported to his squadron. "These guys have never fought anyone who uses phase technology." The battle was not just one-sided. It was a demonstration of total technological superiority. Every weapon the humans used was beyond anything the galactic civilizations had developed. Every tactic they employed was something that no enemy had ever encountered. Admiral Carter watched as the enemy fleet tried desperately to retreat. Their ships turned away from the human forces and began trying to escape to hyperspace. She was not going to let that happen. "All units, begin deployment of interdiction fields. Do not let any enemy vessel escape." New devices activated throughout the human fleet. Space itself became thick and heavy around the enemy ships. Their hyperspace engines, which should have allowed instant escape, simply failed to function. "Interdiction fields are working perfectly," reported Lieutenant Commander Walsh. "The enemy is trapped in normal space." The enemy fleet was now completely surrounded by human ships. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their ships could not outrun human vessels. Their technology could not match human firepower. They were helpless. Admiral Carter opened communications to the enemy fleet one final time. "This is your last chance to surrender. Drop your shields and prepare to be boarded." The enemy response was to detonate their own ships rather than surrender. One by one, the massive vessels that had terrorized the galaxy began exploding as their crews activated self-destruct systems. Carter watched this with mixed feelings. Part of her respected the enemy's refusal to give up. Another part of her was frustrated that they would choose death over providing information about their origins and intentions. "Admiral," Walsh called out urgently, "we are detecting something new. Long-range sensors show additional enemy fleets moving toward this position." Carter checked the tactical display. 3 more enemy fleets were approaching from different directions, each one larger than the force they had just defeated. It seemed that the first attack had been only a probe to test galactic defenses. "Signal Terra Command," she ordered. "Inform them that we have confirmed the enemy's full-scale invasion has begun. Request permission to initiate Phase 2 of the operation." The response came back immediately. "Permission granted. Begin Phase 2 immediately. Authorization code Omega Black." Admiral Carter smiled as she opened fleet communications. "All units prepare for Phase 2 operations. Begin recall of stealth reconnaissance units. Signal all hidden installations to begin full activation. Contact the reserve fleets and tell them it is time to come home." Captain Fisher felt the Portland shudder again as even more hidden systems came online. "My God," she whispered as her tactical display updated. "How many ships do we actually have?" The answer came from Admiral Carter's next announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed the opening engagement of Earth's first galactic war. What you saw today was a single battle group of the Terran Defense Force. We currently have 47 identical battle groups positioned throughout the galaxy. The implications of this statement hit the human crews like a physical blow. If what they had just witnessed was only 1/47th of human military capability, then Earth possessed the most powerful military force in galactic history. The Battle of Proxima Grid had lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the galaxy had changed forever. The emergency session of the Galactic Council 3 days after the battle was very different from previous meetings. This time no one was laughing. The massive crystal chamber that had once echoed with mockery of human capabilities now held 46 alien species sitting in complete silence. Ambassador Jake Morrison took his place at the human delegation table. General Lisa Hayes, Dr. Kevin Blake, Admiral Susan Carter, and Commander Paul Jenkins sat beside him. The aliens stared at them with expressions that mixed fear, respect, and barely controlled panic. "Before we begin," announced the council chairman, his tentacles moving nervously, "I believe we all have questions about recent events." The chamber remained silent for several long moments. Finally, Ambassador Zexthai of the Velaran Empire spoke. His forearms were trembling slightly as he addressed the humans. The human fleet that engaged the hostile forces bore no resemblance to any vessels in our intelligence reports. We have detailed scans of every ship that has entered or left human space for the past 3 years. Where did those warships come from? Jake stood slowly. The casual confidence he had displayed during the previous meeting now carried an entirely different weight. Every alien in the chamber watched his every movement. "You are absolutely correct," he said calmly. "The ships you observed were part of our actual military forces. What you have been seeing for the past 3 years were disguised vessels operating under false identifications." False identifications? The Andromedan representative's clicking sounds had become rapid and agitated. "Our intelligence networks are quite comprehensive. We monitor all shipbuilding activities in known space. There are no facilities in human territory capable of producing vessels of that size and capability." Dr. Blake leaned forward and spoke for the first time. "That is because you were looking in the wrong places and for the wrong things." General Hayes activated a holographic projector that filled the chamber with a 3-dimensional map of human space. But this map showed features that had never appeared in any galactic survey. The aliens stared in growing amazement as the display revealed the true scope of human civilization. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various classifications," Hayes began, "allow me to introduce you to the actual infrastructure of the Terran Alliance." The map expanded to show massive shipyards built inside asteroids that had been hollowed out and converted into manufacturing facilities. Military bases were hidden within moons that appeared barren on the surface, but contained vast underground complexes. Most shocking of all were the manufacturing facilities that existed in pocket dimensions, accessible only through quantum tunnels that human technology had learned to create. "Every merchant vessel you observed was a warship in disguise," Hayes continued. "Every colony ship carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Every research station was actually a fortress equipped with weapons that could threaten entire star systems." Commander Jenkins took over the presentation. Our species has been at war with itself for most of our recorded history. We have learned things about warfare that most civilizations never need to discover. We understand deception, misdirection, and the application of overwhelming force at precisely the right moment. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence as the implications of these revelations sank in. The Cathari representative finally found his voice. But why? Why hide such capabilities from the galactic community? Jake Morrison smiled, the same small smile he had worn during their previous meeting, but now the aliens understood what that expression really meant. Because the galaxy was not ready to know what humans were capable of. You saw us as primitive, harmless, and amusing. That perception had significant strategic value. You deceived us, accused the Zephyrian delegate, his voice filled with anger and fear. You allowed us to believe you were weak while you built a secret empire. We built defenses, Admiral Carter corrected firmly. Everything we constructed, every ship we launched, every weapon we designed, had one purpose: protecting this galaxy from threats exactly like the one you just witnessed. And how long have you known about that threat? Asked the council chairman. The human delegation exchanged glances. Dr. Blake spoke carefully, choosing his words with obvious precision. Our deep space monitoring stations detected the hostile forces approximately 8 years ago. They were moving slowly and methodically through unexplored regions, destroying everything in their path. We have been preparing for their arrival ever since. 8 years, whispered the Andromedan representative. You have known about this threat for 8 years and said nothing to the galactic community. Would you have believed us? Jake asked. 3 years ago, when we first joined this council, you laughed at the suggestion that humans could contribute to galactic defense. If we had claimed to detect a massive hostile force that your more advanced sensors could not find, what would your response have been? The chamber fell silent as every delegate realized the truth of his words. They had dismissed human warnings about minor threats. They certainly would not have taken seriously a human claim about a galaxy-ending invasion. The Valoran ambassador shifted uncomfortably in his seat. You could have shared your technology with us. We could have worked together to prepare defenses. General Hayes activated another display that showed detailed analysis of galactic military capabilities. We studied every military force in known space for 3 years. We analyzed your weapons, your tactics, your strategic thinking, and your technological development. The conclusion was unavoidable. What conclusion? Demanded the Cathari delegate. That if we had shared our technology with you, it would have been used primarily for warfare between galactic civilizations, rather than defense against external threats. Admiral Carter said bluntly, your species have been fighting each other for thousands of years over territory, resources, and ideology. Giving you access to human weapons technology would have resulted in the destruction of countless innocent beings. Dr. Blake brought up historical data that made several delegates gasp in recognition. In the past century alone, there have been 47 wars between members of this council. Over 2 billion sentient beings have died in conflicts that could have been resolved through negotiation. Furthermore, Jake continued, our psychological analysis indicated that most galactic species would have attempted to steal or reverse engineer our technology rather than accept it as a gift. This would have led to arms races that would have weakened everyone when the real threat arrived. The council chairman's tentacles writhed with what appeared to be shame. So you decided to protect us by deceiving us. We decided to protect the galaxy by preparing in secret, Jake corrected. Every human facility you never knew about, every weapon you never detected, every ship you never saw, all of it was built for one purpose: to ensure that when this enemy arrived, someone would be ready to stop them. Commander Jenkins activated a final display that showed the true scope of the recent battle. What you witnessed at Proxima Grid was Battle Group 7 of the Terran Defense Force. It represents approximately 2% of our total military capability. The silence that followed this statement was deafening. Several alien delegates appeared to be having difficulty breathing. The implications were staggering. 2%, repeated the Andromedan, his clicking sounds barely audible. The enemy force that destroyed your combined fleets consisted of approximately 800 capital ships, Admiral Carter explained. Our intelligence estimates indicate that this represents less than 10% of their total military strength. When their main invasion force arrives, they will deploy somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 warships of similar capability. And humanity can stop such a force? asked the Zephyrian delegate quietly. Jake Morrison looked around the chamber at 46 alien species who had spent 3 years treating humans like children. His expression was serious but not unkind. The Terran Alliance currently maintains active battle fleets totaling over 150,000 combat vessels. Our strategic weapons inventory includes devices capable of destroying stars, collapsing solar systems, and manipulating space-time itself. Our manufacturing capacity can produce a fully armed dreadnought every 6 hours. He paused to let these numbers sink in before continuing. Yes, we can stop them. The question is whether the galactic community is prepared to accept the new reality that this revelation creates. The chamber remained silent as every delegate contemplated a universe where humanity possessed military power beyond their comprehension. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Grid, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have imagined. The Galactic Council had been completely restructured. The human territories now held a permanent seat on the Strategic Defense Committee, and Admiral Susan Carter had been appointed Supreme Commander of Allied Forces. Jake Morrison stood in his new office aboard Unity Station, humanity's first openly military installation in galactic space. The station was massive, larger than most alien capital cities, and served as the headquarters for the new Galactic Defense Alliance. Through the huge viewport, he could see ships from dozens of species training alongside human vessels. The sight still amazed him. 6 months ago, these same species had been laughing at human offers of military assistance. Now they were eagerly learning everything they could about human military tactics and technology. General Lisa Hayes entered the office carrying a datapad. The latest intelligence reports, Mr. Ambassador. Still finding it hard to believe how much things have changed? Jake asked, noting her slightly amused expression. 6 months ago, the Andromedans thought our biggest ship was a converted cargo hauler, she said, shaking her head. Now they are requesting human engineers to upgrade their dreadnoughts. The universe definitely has a sense of humor. How are the integration programs going? Better than we expected. It turns out most species are quite eager to learn from us once they get over the initial shock. The Valorans have requested permission to send their entire officer corps through our war colleges. Jake reviewed the information on his datapad. Human technology was being carefully shared with allied species, but only after extensive background checks and security clearances. Trust, as humanity had learned over centuries of warfare, had to be earned through actions rather than words. Any updates from the deep space monitoring stations? Hayes' expression became more serious. That is actually what I wanted to discuss with you. Long-range sensors are detecting something new. Multiple contacts, actually. More enemy forces. Unknown at this time. But whatever we destroyed at Proxima Grid was not their main fleet. Admiral Carter estimates we faced perhaps 10% of their total military capability. Jake nodded grimly. The victory at Proxima Grid had been impressive, but humanity's military analysts were not celebrating yet. The enemy had been testing galactic defenses with a relatively small force. The real invasion was still coming. How many species have signed the mutual defense agreements? 38 so far. The others are still reconsidering their positions. This was actually better than Jake had hoped. When the human military capabilities were first revealed, several species had considered them a threat rather than an asset. It had taken months of careful diplomacy to convince them that humanity had no interest in conquest or domination. What about the technology sharing protocols? Those are more complicated. Everyone wants access to human weapons and defensive systems, but they are not all willing to share their own technological advances in return. Hayes pulled up a detailed chart on her pad. The Cathari want quantum dissolution cannons but refuse to provide their shield harmonics research. The Zephyrians want dimensional cutter technology but will not share their faster-than-light communication systems. And our response? Admiral Carter has been very clear. Full technology exchange or no technology exchange. We are not going to arm species who might use our weapons against each other or against us. Jake approved of this approach. Humanity had learned from studying galactic history that giving advanced weapons to civilizations who were not ready for them usually led to disaster. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Hayes checked her communicator and frowned. Sir, we have a situation developing in the Outer Rim territories. The USS Yorktown is reporting contact with unknown vessels. They appear to be survivors from one of the civilizations that was destroyed before Proxima Grid. Survivors? I thought those species were completely wiped out. Apparently not. Captain Rodriguez reports that a small fleet of refugee ships has emerged from hyperspace near the abandoned Stellar Republic colonies. They are requesting assistance and claiming to have information about the enemy forces. Jake considered this development carefully. Intelligence about the enemy was desperately needed, but refugee situations were always complicated. Send word to Admiral Carter. I want a full battle group to respond to this contact. If these really are survivors, they may have valuable information. If they are enemy infiltrators, we need to be prepared. Already done, sir. Battle Group 12 is moving to intercept. ETA is 4 hours. The communication system activated again, this time with a direct call from Admiral Carter aboard the USS Montana. Her image appeared on the main screen, and Jake could see the bridge of the massive dreadnought behind her. Ambassador Morrison, we have a developing situation that requires your attention. The refugee contact? No, something else. Our long-range surveillance posts are detecting massive energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. Whatever is coming is much larger than anything we have seen before. Jake felt a familiar tension in his stomach. How much larger? Conservative estimates suggest an enemy fleet of at least 20,000 capital ships, possibly more. They will arrive in approximately 6 weeks. The numbers were staggering. Even with humanity's hidden military strength, a force of that size would be a serious challenge. What is our current readiness status? All human battle groups are at full operational capacity. The new Allied integration squadrons are showing promising results. However, we are still significantly outnumbered. Hayes stepped forward. What about the special projects? Are they ready for deployment? Admiral Carter smiled grimly. Project Endgame is fully operational. If we are forced to use it, the enemy will learn why humanity has survived every extinction-level threat we have ever faced. Jake knew about Project Endgame, though most of the details were classified above his security level. It represented humanity's ultimate contingency plan, something so devastating that it would only be used as a last resort. Let us hope it does not come to that, he said quietly. The conversation was interrupted by another priority alert. This time the message came from Captain Nicole Fisher aboard the USS Portland, which was leading a patrol near the former Crimson Coalition territory. Command, this is Portland Actual. We have discovered something that changes everything. I am transmitting data now. The main screen filled with sensor readings that made both Jake and General Hayes stare in amazement. The data showed the remains of a massive space battle, but these were not the clean destruction patterns that human weapons created. This wreckage showed signs of advanced defensive actions and successful counterattacks. Captain Fisher, explain what we are looking at, Admiral Carter requested. Admiral, we have found evidence that the enemy has been taking casualties in other encounters. Someone else in this galaxy has been fighting them and winning. Jake felt hope rising in his chest for the first time in months. Are you saying we have potential allies? Sir, I am saying that humanity may not be the only species in this galaxy with hidden military capabilities. Based on the weapon signatures in this debris field, whoever fought here had technology that was at least equal to what the enemy deployed at Proxima Grid. General Hayes was already analyzing the data. If this is accurate, it means the galaxy contains other civilizations that have been preparing for this threat just as we have. Admiral Carter's expression became thoughtful. Or it means that some species have been hiding their true capabilities for the same reasons we did. Jake Morrison looked out at the ships training in formation around Unity Station. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft, sharing knowledge and building the foundation for a truly unified defense. But now it seemed that this alliance might be larger than anyone had imagined. Send messages to all member species of the Defense Alliance, he ordered. It is time for complete disclosure. If anyone else has been hiding military capabilities, now is the time to reveal them. The enemy is coming with everything they have, and we need to know exactly what forces we can field in response. As the messages went out across the galaxy, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that first meeting in the Crystal Chamber. Humanity had gone from being the laughed-at newcomers to the leaders of galactic defense. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The enemy was coming, and this time they would not be testing defenses with a small force. This time they were coming to end civilization in the galaxy forever. But they had made one critical mistake. They had given humanity and its allies time to prepare. And as every species in galactic history had learned the hard way, Giving humans time to prepare for a fight was the worst tactical error any enemy could make.